Welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC and your daily reminder that the Reds are top of the league and we finished top of the Champions League as well. Despite last night's 3-2 defeat away to PSV Eindhoven, Liverpool topped the group with 21 points, two clear of Barcelona, Arsenal and Inter Milan, all of whom finished on 19. Atletico Madrid on 18, Leverkusen, Lille and Aston Villa on 16, making up the top 8 that will avoid the playoff nonsense and go straight into the last 16. So 3 of the English clubs straight into the last 16. Manchester City, very, very fortunate last night, coming from behind to beat Club Bruges and secure their spot in the playoff, finishing in 22nd position and only actually getting in on goal difference. They had the same points as Dinamo Zagreb, who missed out. So, we know that we're through. We know that we can now park the Champions League for a few months. We don't have to worry about anything until the next draw is made. And we have a fair idea of what our path to the semi-finals will look like, or could look like, I should say. So, like I say, we'll sit out the next round. We don't need to worry. 16 teams will be drawn to play each other on Friday. And then from there, we'll have a clearer picture of what's what. What we do know is that in the last 16, we will face one of the following 4 teams: Monaco, Brest, Benfica, or Paris Saint-Germain. Of those, Paris Saint-Germain are the one you'd want to avoid. You'd still be confident in our ability to beat them. We're a better team than them. And despite the fact that they ended up finishing in 15th, they had a very poor Champions League campaign, winning only 4 of their 8 games, and they had to win their last 3 in a row to win 4. You'd fancy us to beat any of those teams. And should we beat any of those teams, in the quarterfinal, we would face Lille, Aston Villa, Sporting, Bruges, Atalanta, or Dortmund. And of those 6, we've already beaten Lille. We'd be heavily favoured against Sporting, Bruges, and Dortmund. We'd be favourites against Atalanta and Villa, but they'd be the 2 toughest teams. They'd be the 2 toughest teams we could face in that quarterfinal. And then obviously on from there. But it's not bad. Like, it really isn't a bad draw at all for us. If we could avoid PSG and Atalanta, you'd put a lot of money on us to make the semi-finals. And even with those 2 teams, you'd still be very confident of our chances of reaching the semi-final stage. And then we'll see where we go from there, how it ends up at that point. Last night, the result was irrelevant. Arne Slot telegraphed the fact that he didn't care about the actual result by leaving 9 key players at home. And of course, on top of that, we were without Diogo Jota, without Curtis Jones, and without Joe Gomez. So very much a reserve squad that travelled over for the game last night. Then, of course, Darwin had to miss out because he was unwell. So that's 13 players not involved. What was important last night, or what should have been important last night, was the performance. The individual performances of certain players. Players whose futures at the club are not as clear-cut as they might like them to be. Harvey Elliott is a prime example of that. Harvey's someone that has struggled to get minutes this season. In recent weeks, he's had a couple of good performances off the bench. Against Brentford, he gets a goal, gets an assist, and he's involved in another goal. Now, he was poor for the majority of his time on the pitch. He came on, I think, on 76. The game went to about 94, 95. He was pretty poor up until 90 when he had his involvement in the 2 goals. Then against Lille, he comes off the bench and it's his shot that takes the big deflection and goes in. He looked really lively. He looked a bit more confident in that game. Against Ipswich, he had a pretty nondescript appearance, but last night was an opportunity for him. Last night was a start in a team that needed the more experienced players to really step up. And despite Harvey's young age, he was one of the most experienced players on the pitch in a Liverpool shirt, a fellow with over 175 senior games for Fulham, Blackburn and ourselves. Up against a team from a lesser league where you're looking at their team and you're thinking there's not a whole lot of players that are capable of playing at a higher level than where they currently are now. Last night was the type of game where Harvey Elliott needed to walk in and put his imprint on the game. He needed to show he was one of the best players on the pitch. And he failed to do that. And Harvey's had 3 starts in the last few months. Southampton away in the EPL Cup, Accrington Stanley at home in the FA Cup, and last night, where you really want to see him grab the game by the scruff of the neck and show himself to be one of the best players on the pitch. Because we constantly have this discourse around Harvey and people claiming he should be playing a lot more, that he should be starting, that he's a better option in the number 10 spot than Szoboszlai, and, well, Klopp loved him, so why doesn't Arne Slot? And the truth is that when he gets these opportunities, he lets them slip away. He was poor against Southampton. He tried far too hard to be Martin Odegaard or Bernardo Silva against Accrington Stanley. And last night was exactly the same. In the first half, he was infuriating. Far too many touches every time he had the ball, slowing things down, killed a number of promising counterattacks. And the one he did actually create a chance for Federico Chiesa, he delayed the pass far too long, and it wasn't the right pass. That ball should have been slid in front of Chiesa earlier for Chiesa to just run on and hit. Now, Chiesa's bad touch is Chiesa's bad touch, but Harvey didn't maximize the opportunity there. And the reason Chiesa has to take a touch is because by the time Harvey releases the ball, the defender has now recovered a cross onto Chiesa. It's also a pass that lands kind of in the middle of his feet. It's not out in front of him, allowing him to stride onto it. The first half, he was really frustrating. The second half, he was flat out terrible. He was awful in the second half. He was sloppy. He was weak. Gave the ball away far too many times. He's not the reason we lost, but he's a big part of the reason we didn't win. And those are different things. We lost the game because defensively we were very poor. But we still, despite that defensive poor performance, had an opportunity to win the game because of the attacking talent we had on the pitch, because of the opportunities we got ourselves into, because of the fact that PSV, frankly, are just many levels below where we are. So Harvey had an opportunity and he didn't take it. He started in a front four. He started as the 10 in a front four with Chiesa on the right, Gakpo on the left, and Danns through the middle. Now, it was a tough enough day for Jaden Danns. He didn't get great service. He was often left up against 2 centre-backs by himself. And despite the fact that these are centre-backs who are not of the same level of, say, our normal starting centre-backs or most normal high-end Premier League centre-backs, they're still professional footballers. They're still grown men. They're still good players. And Jaden Danns is a kid making his first start for Liverpool. And he found it difficult. He had a couple of lovely moments, one or two nice turns, a couple of nice layoffs, but he found it tough going. But credit to him, he never let his head drop. He kept chasing things, kept trying to make things happen, took a couple of heavy enough knocks, never complained, just got on with it.